Friends, I hope all of you can see me again. This is the third time we are talking to you from Prague, from the Carolinum. This is a conference focusing on the religious freedom in the world. It is taking place today, which is Red Wednesday, and the main organizer is the Institute for Christian Democratic Policies, together with the Czech Bishops' Conference, the Ecumenical Council of Churches, and the Federation of Jewish Communities. My name is Daniela Raus, and I am the moderator of this conference, of all the three sessions. We're now getting to the third panel, which is probably the most interesting one to most of our listeners and viewers, because it is a panel devoted to the testimonies of those who have experienced firsthand persecution for faith in various countries of the world. The structure of the third panel will be slightly unusual. Marcela Szymanski, who was already a member of the previous panel, will first introduce to us the three following guest speakers, one from Mosul, the other from Pakistan, and then another guest from Nigeria. And she will tell us why these guests are so important and why it is so important to listen to what they have to say. So at this point, the floor goes back to Marcela Szymanski. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Yes, so the floor is yours now. And you are now the moderator.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to know why we are here today, really. We have the honor of hearing directly from those who live every day in the regions where the most violent persecution and attempts to genocide take place. They live in what to us is the front line, the line of fire. Every day, they are at risk of losing their lives. Some of them have escaped death almost miraculously, like Monsignor Mouche of Karakosh in Iraq, whom we will see through video. They have been betrayed by their neighbors, insulted, and their dear ones have been killed brutally or sold off as slaves. And yet, they are still going on, being for us the living example of living according to your faith, and also the living example of what happens when you do not defend your religious freedom in time. Then consequences are as dire as what we are going to hear. I have the honor of knowing personally most of the witnesses. I have been in northern Iraq too, and have met with a Yazidi family in the Nineveh place. I have met with victims of the Pakistani lynching mobs who had to flee their land. But that doesn't matter. What we need to do now is to listen, both with our ears and our hearts, to their testimony. First of all, we are going to have the video testimony of Monsignor Yohanna Petros Mouche, the Archbishop of Mosul, who was chased away by ISIS. He has visited us in Brussels and many other cities over the years, bringing the news that are now summarized in his video presentation after the fact. We met him in 2014. Now, 6 years later, we can hear some sort of conclusion of first chapter or something. The benefactors of Aid to the Church in Need have sent to the Nineveh Plains close to 45 million euros in humanitarian aid and reconstruction funds, which were admirably managed by the churches. The message of Monsignor Petros Mouche is a message of hope, a message that if each one of us does his part, the Christians in the Middle East can have not only a decent present, but also a future. I would like now to show directly the video. I don't know if...
Dear listeners, May the peace of the Lord be with you all. The liberation of the towns and villages of the Nineveh plains, especially the liberation of Karakosh, our largest city, took place on October the 22nd, 2016. A few months later, Mosul, the provincial capital, was liberated. Ever since, we lost confidence in our neighbors. Our Christian militia, known as the NPU, Nineveh Plain Protection Units, has been guarding the territory. According to our liturgy, the first Sunday after the liberation of towns and villages in October was the Consecration Sunday. On that day, I visited for the first time the main Catholic churches in the area: the Church of St. George in Bartella, the Church of St. Thaddeus in Karemlash, and then the large Church of the Immaculate Conception in Karakosh, which was burned down by the terrorist organization Daesh a few days before. As I entered the church, I knelt here for a while on the threshold of the sacred gate, asking for forgiveness for all those who had destroyed the house of the Lord. Then I blessed the church and prayed for its cleansing. Together with a few priests, I served the first Mass here for several believers. The service was also attended by several people who were assigned to guard the place. During Mass, I noticed some people whispering. After Mass, I learned what they were talking about. Soldiers have just found 2 elderly Christian women in a house. Daesh robbed them, took all their jewelry and money, and left them there. After Mass, the 2 women left with us for the Ainkava Christian quarter to live with their families. Shortly after the liberation of our cities, several families asked me if they could settle again in the town of Karakosh. As a precaution, I advised them not to hurry until Mosul was liberated. The fighting was still very close. It was not until the beginning of February 2017 that 4 families decided to return to live in Karakosh. Impressed by their courage and love for their country, I decided to join them to support them and to encourage other families to return. Gradually, several indigenous people came to repair their houses so that they and their families could settle there again. 1 week before Palm Sunday, we celebrate a folk festival here. In beautiful spring weather, believers meet in the pastures around a cave not far from Karakosh to pray, eat outside with their families, and spend a pleasant time together. I took the opportunity to be with the people of Karakosh and joined families and individuals to celebrate this holiday with them. When the families who still lived in Ainkava at the time found out about the event, about 12 of them joined us. It meant great joy and hope for us, and thanks to that, we had the courage to celebrate Palm Sunday next week. In fact, many believers attended the Mass on Palm Sunday. After Mass, we continued the traditional celebration of Palm Sunday in Karakosh, walking around the city and singing traditional hymns. More than 2,000 believers joined us. In June 2017, 600 families decided to leave their sanctuaries and return to Karakosh and the surrounding area. After that, A lot of families returned to us during the summer holidays. The number of families in Karakosh thus climbed to 5,500. This corresponds to 25 to 26,000 people, or 60% of the city's population before the invasion of Daesh. As for our other believers, some of them preferred to stay in Kurdistan for various reasons. Some have not repaired their houses yet, and others stayed due to work. Some of them are in Jordan, Lebanon, or Turkey and plan to emigrate. Some have already arrived in France, Germany, and other European countries. Others have found refuge in Australia, Canada, or America. The return of our believers back to their home was made possible by several charitable communities that helped us repair the houses or gave the craftsmen the opportunity to open a workshop and carry on their craft. It also allowed farmers to prepare chicken farms, gardeners to prepare their gardens, etc. It is important to mention the role and influence of priests who follow the example of their bishop and live with the faithful to celebrate Holy Mass and provide all other necessary pastoral activities. Places come back to life again. Restaurants and shops open. Various craftsmen return to their activities, and several of our less damaged churches have been repaired thanks to small donations from the faithful. Of course, it was most important for me to be able to live here and make it a place worth living for our believers. Only then was it necessary to begin to repair our churches. Several communities and non-governmental non-profit organizations have been actively involved in the renovation of our homes. These included Aid to the Church in Need, L'Œuvre d'Orient, SOS Chrétien d'Orient, Fraternité en Irak, CAPNI, Salt Foundation, Samaritan Spurs, the Knights Hospitaller, and the Knights of Columbus. I am also proud to mention the role of the Hungarian government, which has presented me with $1 million to support projects for various needs of the diocese. With their permission, I decided to use this amount to renovate houses that were completely destroyed and that were not a part of the renovation plan. I was shocked at the idea that the money could serve the diocese, even though the houses of our believers had not been reconstructed yet. Eventually, it was also time to repair our churches, our shrines, our pastoral centers, schools, parishes, and Christian radio. Several communities have shown a desire to participate in the reconstruction and revitalization of these various projects. In particular, the following helped: Aid to the Church in Need, the Knights of Columbus, Fondation Saint-Irénée, L'Œuvre d'Orient, Fraternité en Irak, CAPNI, ICO, and others. A Sunni Muslim sent me a message through one of our believers, offering me his help in repairing one of the churches. He sent us $50,000, which allowed us to restore the interior of St. John's Church in Karakosh. The monastery of St. Benham and his sister Sarah from the 7th century is located not far from Karakosh. It contains a mausoleum with the tombs of these martyrs. It is a sacred place that is known and respected not only by Christians, but also by Muslims, Yarsan, and Yazidis. And Daesh shot this place to pieces. Thanks to the organization Fraternité en Irak, however, this mausoleum was restored. Upon our return, we found that our neighbors, Sunni Muslims, had changed somewhat in their mentality and in their actions. Above all, the young people respected us, interacted with us, and were not afraid to talk to us or even take pictures together. Some young people even asked us if they could take a picture with us with the cross and offered to help us work. Of course, not everything has improved, and every now and then we still encounter some rejection. As a consequence, we still remain cautious. Situation around coronavirus. Due to the spread of this epidemic, we have formed two groups, a protection group and a group that procures healthcare, medicines, medical supplies and finance. The large building of St. Ephraim's School has been set aside for paramedics who care for the sick. We also inform our believers in churches and parish centers. Several months have passed without anyone becoming infected, but unfortunately, lately the disease has affected many of our believers and priests, and some have even died. In conclusion, I want to tell you that life has returned to normal for us. Most houses, schools, churches and hospitals are repaired. All this was made possible by various gifts from the Holy Father, episcopal conferences, Christian charities, and, of course, the perseverance, desire, and goodwill of our believers. Their devotion and love for the country led them not to leave while a safe life was guaranteed for them. Monsignor Yohanna Petros Mouche, Archbishop of the Syrian Catholic Church in Mosul, Iraq. Thank you for listening.
Can thank Monsignor Yohanna Petros Mouche and certainly God our Lord for having preserved him. I had the honor of meeting him 2 months before ISIS arrived to invade his town. And then afterwards I saw him several times and very deeply touched by the fact that he lived really to see the situation back more or less to how he had left it. It's really a very, very moving experience that he has had over his life. Now, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Falah Hassan, who will warn us not to live under the illusion that the war is over in Iraq. Thousands of Yazidi women and children were taken as slaves by the Islamic State. And there are still now many of them missing. They were sold to criminals in other countries. And yes, the clear stated intention of the Islamic State was to eliminate the Yazidis and the Christians from Iraq and Syria. They almost succeeded. Let us hear now from Falah Hassan, what is the situation today?
Thank you for giving me the chance to talk about the situation of Yazidis in Iraq. Let's talk about the history of the Yazidis. Actually, through the history, the Yazidis went through 72 genocides because of their belief, because of the religion. All this happened after the appearance of Islam, unfortunately, to say that, but this is the truth. Because of our belief, we went through 72 genocides in the past, and recently two genocides. The last one was in 2014. After the falling of regime of Saddam at 2003, the situation changed totally. The Yazidis areas became a conflict area between the Iraqi government and the Kurdish government, unfortunately. And from that time till now, we are facing a big problem. Every government try to exploit the situation for their side. In 2006, they started to kill the Yazidis in Mosul and other cities of Iraq on the identity, because in the ID card is written the religion, Yazidi, by Al-Qaeda. I was a student. I supposed to start in Mosul to study pharmacy college at 2007. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go and continue my studying in the college. I postponed it 2 years, and then I started studying in Soleimani, and then I continued my studying. This happened to Yazidis. They killed many Yazidis because of identity, because the ID was writing the religion Yazidi. When they see a Yazidi, they were killing them. And then I just finished the college in 2014. 1 month, then I came back to Sinjar, and the genocide happened. Before ISIS attacked Sinjar city, they attacked Mosul, they occupied Mosul, and then they occupied Talafar, the areas close to Sinjar. Actually, I tried to take my family outside of Sinjar, but the Kurdish forces there prevented me to do that. They told me that we will protect you. Even my sister, she is married in Siba Sheikh Khadri, a village south side of Sinjar. She was sick. She hired a car with her husband and 3 children. They tried to go to Kurdistan, to the hospitals, but unfortunately, the Kurdish forces took the children from them. They told, if you took the children with you, then you will not come back to Sinjar, and the people should stay here. We are protecting you. And at 3rd of August 2014, I was in Sinjar. When ISIS attacked, the Kurdish forces pulled out without any fighting, just like a planning. And the ISIS came and killed the men. They give the men 2 choices, actually, either convert to Islam or killing. And they kidnapped the girls. There was about 12,000 victims who were killed, who were kidnapped. And I was able to reach Kurdistan, but it was very difficult in way to go through Rabia, which prohibited by Arabic by Arab, who they tried with ISIS to kill us on the way to go to Kurdistan, but the PKK in the other side, they came and they fight with ISIS, and we go. I went through the street in both sides. There was fighting, bullets from both sides, and by cars we went in the middle. Fortunately, we were able to flee our lands, but thousands of people hugged in the mountain with the simple weapons. The Yazidis defended the mountain. They stayed about 8 days without food, without water. Many children, about 100 children, were died, and the aged persons, the old aged, they were died because of thirst, because of hunger. After that, the corridor was opened, and they came through Syria. they came to Kurdistan to the camps, and about 6 years we are in the camps in Kurdistan. Unfortunately, we lose the basic needs of life in the camps, and many girls who liberated from ISIS, who were able to flee from ISIS, sometimes there was no tent to live in. This was the situation in the camps. The current situation in Sinjar, actually, there is no reconstruction yet. There is no rebuilding, no electricity. Some rehabilitation occur for the schools and the hospital by Nadia initiatives and some other international and local NGOs. But the worst situation is the political situation. There is political conflicts in Sinjar, which affect negatively on the people there. The situation is not safe. From one side, the PKK, the other side, the Iraqi forces, the Kurdish forces. Everyone is trying to take some part, so the situation is very bad. And now they made an agreement between the Kurdistan, the Kurdish government and the Iraqi government, and this agreement they're trying to make a conflict area just like before. They don't give the leadership to the Yazidi forces to protect the area, and unfortunately we don't trust the governments. We need the leadership of Yazidis in Sinjar, and unfortunately this not happened. The other thing, and which is very, very important, the justice in Iraq. The local people who participated with ISIS, who participated in killing the Yazidis, in raping the Yazidis, in doing all bad things to the Yazidis, they are releasing by money. Although the witnesses are there, there are some witnesses from their tribes, from Muslims, that this person committed crimes against the Yazidis, and unfortunately they liberate them, they release them from one. And I will give you one example. Jarallah Muhammad Ali Jarallah, who is the head of sheikhs of Bumutewut tribe, who participated in killing the Yazidis, in raping the Yazidis. There are witnesses from the Yazidis and witnesses from Sunni Muslim against him, and unfortunately before 10 or 15 days he released from the prison, and this is very dangerous on the witnesses. As a normal person, I know what happened in the court and in the trial, and they also, the witnesses, there is no protection for the witnesses, so there is a big danger on the life of the victims, again by the criminals who are liberated. This is the situation briefly in Iraq and of the Yazidis, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk about it. And if there is any question in the end of the panel or any time during the panel, I'm ready to answer it.
Yes, the questions are going to be moderated at the end of the presentations by Daniel. Yes, indeed, the situation there for the Yazidis has lasted for several thousands of years, and it is never too late and never too little what we can do for them, because it is really appalling what continues happening with the lack of justice that they are subjected to. Now we are going to hear now from Mr. Akmal Bhatti. And he will tell us how the sustained international pressure over the Pakistani government is currently having some effect on the way the non-Muslims are treated in his country. Pakistan is one of the few countries in the world that declares itself to be an Islamic republic. Okay? So it is extremely hard life for a minority, like we just heard from Falah, when you are de facto a second-class citizen. And then you have to fight for your rights even against a higher wall. Some of the colleagues of Mr. Akmal Bhatti, including his boss, Shahbaz Bhatti, have been murdered just by merely discussing blasphemy laws, just by discussing the possibility that the non-Muslims were equal to the others. They have been murdered by fanatics in a country where even discussing the law about blasphemy is a blasphemy. So, as a lawyer defending the most harrowing cases of abduction and rape of Christian and Hindu girls, he knows firsthand this long-term attempt to eliminate the plurality from a country of 200 million people. Mr. Bhatti, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the organizers, respected dignitaries. According to official figures of Statistics Bureau available in 2020, Pakistan has the population of 212 million, being the world's fifth most populous country of the world. Among these population, 96% are Muslims, the remaining 4% are non-Muslims, which include Christians, Hindu, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jain, Parsis, and atheists. Hindu makes up the 1.61% and the population, while Christian represent 1.59%. In my beloved country, religious minorities, especially Christians, are suffering. They are treated as third-class citizens. The meaning of the name Pakistan is the land of pious people, but unfortunately, this land is polluted by the notorious violent religious extremists. The living space for Christians is getting narrow day by day. The founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, laid down the foundation of this state in 1947 on the golden principle of equality, democracy, religious liberty, social justice, liberal and secular ideology. He addressed the first Constitutional Assembly on August 11, 1947 and expressed that, make no mistake, Pakistan is not a theocracy or anything like it. It was to be democracy, a place where there would be complete equality of mankind, fraternity, equality and liberty. Women were to be treated as equal with men. Our women are shut up within the four walls of the houses as prisoners. There is no sanction anywhere to deplorable condition in which our women have to live. And Pakistan was to be the place where people would be free to follow their religious belief in freedom and equality. You are free. You are free to go your temples. You are free to go your mosques or any other place of worship. In this state of Pakistan, you may belong to any religion, caste, or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state. On paper, religious minorities in Pakistan enjoy equal status, similar rights and protection in both constitution and national law, freedom to profess religion and manage religious institutions, liberty to worship, equality of citizen and safeguard against discrimination in services, freedom of speech and respect of religion, protection of property, and many other principles are enshrined in the Constitution of Pakistan 1973, yet in practice continue to be denied. Furthermore, certain laws, such as blasphemy laws, have adversely affected minorities and their rights. Dozens of innocent peoples were killed, children and women have burnt alive, houses were torched, and huge number of Christians were forced to leave this country. Due to misuse of these draconian laws, Christians are left nowhere to get silent and not be able to defend their faith. Our leader and my uncle Shahbaz Bhatti, ex-Federal Minister of Minority Affairs, were killed in March 2nd, 2011 for speaking against these laws and defending Asya Bibi blasphemy victim. These sensitive laws are used to settle personal vendetta and petty dispute and grab property and business of Christians. I remember a number of incidents that injured my soul. Pakistan present a particularly bleak environment for individuals wishing to manifest their rights to freedom of religion and belief. Across the country, there are individuals and communal cases of discrimination and oppression toward religious minority, which in some cases amount to systematic discrimination and persecution. In today Pakistan, forced conversion of minor Christian girls to Islam, rape and underage forced marriages remain common practice. From last 2 years, approximately more than 1,000 girls annually are abducted, raped and converted to Islam. To get protection of law and to avoid punishment, these accused persons play religious card and provoke sentiments against minor girls. After getting success and fulfillment of sexual lust, these girls are left alone to bear their fate. In last 3 months, 25 teenager girls, such like Arzu Raja, 14 years old, and Huma Yunus, 14, from Karachi city, Farah Shaheen, 13.5-year-old, Myra Shabaz, 14, Mehak Bashir, 13, from Faisalabad, and Mehwash, 13, from Lahore, and many others were abducted, sexually abused, raped, converted to Islam, and converted forced marriages. Christians are protesting countrywide in these days and fighting legal battle in courts to get these girls back. But prejudiced society, law enforcement agencies, partial judicial system, and ambiguous law protect these Muslim rapists. One of the greatest emerging threat to freedom of religion or belief comes not from the action of government, but from non-state actors. These non-state actors include individuals, charged mob, vigilant groups, anti-government insurgents, militant organizations, and are member of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Tehreek-e-Taliban terrorist network, and Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan religious political parties. They differ significantly in ideology, purpose, and goal, and generally are motivated by the violent religious ideology to impose their religious belief on local population and harshly punish those who do not abide by it. Often also arises because government exhibits hostility towards particular religious communities. Our Prime Minister Imran Khan speaks loudly to make Pakistan religious state as of the state of Medina and express his strict religious belief openly. Once, he also disgraced Jesus Christ by saying that history does not know about him. This is the case in Pakistan, where mob attacked those deemed in violation of the country's blasphemy law. This year, 85 Christian individuals were killed and 150 people were injured in different incidents all over the country due to their faith. On February 25, 2020, Christian laborers Salim Masih, 22 years old, was brutally tortured and killed by local Muslim landlord in Kasur on accusation for polluting their tubewell water by taking bath into. They cursed and abused Salim by calling him a filthy Christian. The assailant dragged him to their cattle farm, where they chained his hand and feet and continued to torture him with kicks, sticks, and rod. They also rolled a thick iron rod over Salim's entire body, causing multiple fractures and internal injuries. Nadeem Joseph, a Christian from Peshawar city, was killed, and other 3 family members, including 2 women, were severely injured by indiscriminate firing by the Muslim neighbors. On June 4, 2020, he was killed because he purchased a home in Muslim majority area, what their neighbors determined to be Muslim-only neighborhood. On November 9th, Christian woman named Yasmin and her son Usman Masih were brutally killed by Muslim Muhammad Hassan on petty dispute in Kathor Kalam village of Gujranwala district. No one in Muslim vicinity provided his family transport to shift him nearby hospital to save his life. Masih succumbed to injury after 30 minutes thirsting for help. In countries where these religious extremist organizations operate, central local government authorities often lack the capacity to stop these groups. Ultimately, when violent non-state actors remain unchallenged, they pose not only the threat to human rights, but also to the stability of government in the country and regional security. Despite Pakistan ratification of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Pakistani women, especially women from religious minorities across the Pakistan, are doubly discriminated against, are at systematic risk of becoming victim of abduction, extortion, hijacking, and being held for ransom and sold for prostitution, trafficking, rape, forced marriages, forced conversion, and allegation of blasphemy. Women and girls face discrimination and marginalization and are targeted simply because they are minorities. Hindu girls in Sindh and Christian girls in Punjab are abducted, raped, and forced to convert to Islam, facing extreme pressure, including threats to themselves and their families from the abductor and their families. The majority of the Christian women is illiterate and do menial jobs, working in factories or as domestic servant, with a risk of sexual harassment, physical abuse, forced conversion and marriages, and even death. We Christians are maltreated and hated. In national curriculum, we are demoralized. Constitutionally, we are restricted to be a president and prime minister of the country. Being a liar, I cannot plead my case in federal Sharia court. Top positions in sources are barred. In social media, hate speeches are delivered against other religion. Minorities Alliance Pakistan is struggling for marginalized and persecuted Christians and women. We raise our voice for equality, social justice, democracy, religious liberty, and prosperity. We want peaceful and moderate country where our children, women, and get protected, and we may live with dignity and honor. We want peaceful homeland where we can earn our better and bread freely without any threat and scaredness. We want Muslim brethren to respect our faith and religion. Let us live with pride. We need our help. We need your help. Be advocate of religious liberty and stand for suffering religious minorities in Pakistan. Raise voice for persecuted church in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Akmal, Bhatti, for this testimony, which we have heard that is based in a lot of simply being considered a second-class citizen, no, in a particular country. I wanted to say that Aid to the Church in Need has also taken, for Pakistan in particular, as a way to help the church to pay for the legal costs of defending a girl that has been abducted by a Muslim, usually a Muslim there. And this is something that we can always try to do as if anybody that is listening wants to help these girls, this support, because they make life very difficult for you and for other lawyers that are working in these cases, because they ask you to go to one court and then to another court in another province, or to another level of court in another, or in the capital or something. So the travel, the preparation of the cases, etc., it becomes extremely expensive for the poor Christian families or poor Hindu families. And this is something that Aid to the Church in Need is helping with. And also wanted to mention again that something that Jan Figel said, which was that the European Union, and therefore the Czech Republic, has a rule in its relations with Pakistan that is called the GSP+, which is a term for international trade conditions. And the European Union has told Pakistan, if you don't diminish the abuse of blasphemy laws, for example, then we are not going to give you entry to our market. So this is something that is not used sufficiently. It's something that if the citizens of a country really ask the politicians, why are you not helping them with this, helping the persecuted minorities using this instrument, they are very comfortable not doing it. So this is another tool within our reach for us simple people. A demand from our politicians that they apply the tools that they have in order to defend these poor girls and women. Now, I am going to give the floor to Father Joseph Fidelis, who is calling in from Maiduguri in the northeast of Nigeria. He works for the Catholic Diocese. He will inform us about the rapid expansion of Islamic fundamentalism in his country. Also, more or less 200 million people. We have like the few news that appear in the mainstream media. It talks about a group of terrorists called Boko Haram. But this is a group that has existed for many years, and they are not alone, regretfully. So it's now the entire country sliding into violence. Entire villages have been attacked, burnt, razed to the ground, particularly now during the COVID times. That is one of the consequences of not being looked at. The government decreed a lockdown for the population in Nigeria, and then the terrorists, they had all leisure to do whatever they wanted. It has been terrifying, these months of lockdown. Also, women and girls pay it triple, as they are seen as second-class citizens. And in this area particular, Father Fidelis is the one who runs a psychological trauma clinic in Maiduguri, which was set up by donations from European countries, including Hungary, where these women receive post-traumatic support. But the violence is increasing and the services need more help. Father Fidelis, please, we're listening.
Thank you very much. And, it is impressive to see this concerted effort to raise by great men and women about the persecution of people and to raise awareness also on the need for religious freedom. Religious freedom today, especially in Nigeria, here has been relegated to the margins, and such actions have spelled very serious consequences for many of us who are believers and those who confess different faiths. I'm therefore very happy to see that the organizers of this event have set aside today to raise awareness on the need for religious freedom, but also the need to defend the minorities, those who live as minorities, be they Christians, Jews, Yazidis, even Muslims. Sometimes Muslims also could live as minorities. And so I salute your courage, and I want to thank you for this. The reality of persecution in sub-Saharan Africa has taken a very drastic and dramatic move in the last 10 years. Extremist ideologies propagated by very extreme Muslim Islamic groups like Boko Haram and the Fulani and the ISWAP, that is Islamic State of West African Province, have constantly threatened people, especially we Christians who live here in northern Nigeria. Africa has a very young population, but sadly, the youthful and vibrant populace is quickly turning to these extremist groups. And like the previous speakers have spoken, ISIS was once finding sanctuary around Iraq and Syria, but today gradually they are moving towards the Sahel and into sub-Saharan region, where Christians are constantly threatened. And for us in Nigeria, for Nigeria being a very populous nation, a rich nation, but also a nation with some kind of failed system of government, these extremist Islamic fundamentalists are finding sanctuary in Nigeria. It is sad to say this, that they are Islamic groups, because truly there are moderate Christians, Muslims who want to practice their faith, but that the rise of these little extremist group, the rise of these little sects in the Sahel and in Sub-Sahara is a big threat to us Christians in northern Nigeria. What are the trends of persecution and the violence that are being perpetrated by these persons? There has been a very ferocious revival of religious persecution in Nigeria that is cutting across international boundaries because it is perpetrated by Boko Haram and other ISIS affiliates. By the way, Boko Haram, may interest you to know, has sworn allegiance at some point to ISIS and has been declared the second most deadly religious sect on the globe, on the planet. Meaning that in Nigeria, then, Nigeria is hosting this very deadly group that is constantly unleashing terror, especially targeting Christians, women, children, and young people. There is also another arm of persecution that is coming from the Fulani militia, who are pastoralists, and they are involved in a lot of ethno-religious cleansing. Sad enough, again, it is sad to say that the Fulani belong to the Muslim religion. And that is sad because that is giving that faith a very bad image. And so we have ethno-religious cleansing from the Fulani side. We have religious persecution from Boko Haram and Islamic State of West African province. And we who are living in the minority here in northern Nigeria are constantly threatened, targeted, killed, and our women and girls are constantly raped. Currently, here in Maiduguri and in the surrounding states, millions of people have been displaced, and they are living in camps as internally displaced persons. And here in Nigeria, for us, especially in the north, we are then dying piece by piece. Gradually, we are exterminated. And like other speakers have said, would not be wrong to say that it is a Christians who are in the minority. The country has a population of about 205 million persons, and about 48% of that population, they are Christians, which is to say about 100 million people living in Nigeria are Christians. Why are we constantly, why do we have this persecution coming up in Nigeria? There has been the rise of the Islamic sects, the Boko Haram, the Islamic State of West African province, which is called ISWAP. And these groups are connected with other global terrorist networks, receiving constant logistics, technical support, and they have a trans-border movement between Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and up into the Sahel region. There has been also a very serious revival to establish caliphate in Nigeria, that is to say, to establish an Islamic caliphate, where people will have to live by the Sharia law. And yet we as Christians are asking, we are Christians and we want to practice our faith, but they want to subject us to the Sharia law, meaning we have to abide by certain stringent principles. People have to pay religious taxes. Women have to be subjected to certain religious principles. And these have given rise to a very violent persecution of Christians. And so with Nigeria being the largest economy on the continent, the most populous, and very easy to penetrate because of the porous border with the Sahel region, there has been an inpouring of these extremist groups who are finding sanctuary, and the youths who are poor and illiterate sometimes constantly vie for such things because they are deceived and promised money that at the end they are never given. Often, sometimes Boko Haram and the Fulanis have been underestimated as little ethnic groups, but they have an underground ethnic agenda, a religious agenda to propagate and impose Islam on so many of our people. Thus, Nigeria, being the richest economy, has now, sadly, and with big shame I say this, become the third most, and that is third with the global rating on the Global Terrorist Index. And it is among the 5 countries in the world with worst records of religious persecution. Again, the report from Aid to the Church in Need in 2018 has highlighted this. And I'm sure when the report comes out, we'll see more of such things because the persecution is ongoing. And sadly, too, second country on the planet. So what is happening then to us in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria? What are the forms of persecution that we are constantly subjected to? We as Christians have been deprived land that we can build our worship places. Our worship places have been targeted, destroyed, and burnt down by this extremist group. Just Maiduguri as a diocese has lost over 200 churches burnt down by the terrorists. We have lost health facilities, we have lost schools, and today, half the population of my diocese, in fact, Northeast Nigeria is virtually becoming a very gigantic camp where people live as internally displaced persons. And a good number of these persons who have been displaced are Christians who are targeted for their faith and persecuted because they simply profess as Christians. Our people as Christians have not been given job opportunities. Their promotions have been denied by the government. Just to give an example, recently there was a move by the government to employ 774,000 people across the country, meaning 1,000 employment per local government, every small local government. And for us here in northern Nigeria, those those certificates and forms to be filled were hijacked, and the Christian population were denied. People came to meet me here in Maiduguri to complain and say, Father, we went to our local governments and we were denied opportunity because we are simply Christians. So we are denied job opportunities and Christians have been thrown out of government. There's a systematic ploy to eliminate the Christian populace from work, to impoverish them because already economically our people have been constrained. Their shops have been burnt by Boko Haram. And even where some of these places have been reconstructed, they are denied shops. So it is a way to impoverish the Christians, to humiliate them, deny them studying opportunities, remove them from government places, and deny them places to worship. Meanwhile, our people are living in camps as refugees within their own country. What of the violent deaths? Very sad, shocking headlines on the global scene where people have been violently killed. There has been special targeting of Christians by the Boko Haram sect and the Fulani militia, where they move into village and touch all the houses of Christians and burn them down, hacking down women and cutting people in the most brutal way you cannot imagine that can happen in the 21st century. These things are going on, and sadly, our government sometimes is quiet about it. Beginning this year alone, it is recorded that just in the year 2020, over 1,000 Christians have been killed just from January to now, and it is still counting. In fact, another report that just came up recently said 1,300 Christians have been killed here in Nigeria just for the year 2020. We have had so many cases of brutal murders of Christians. There was a video that was trending last year on 26 December, 11 Christians were beheaded, just like the way ISIS would have killed them. Among them were young people. There was the kidnapping of young Senerians in Kaduna early in February, and one of them, Nadia, was brutally killed simply because he was a Christian. Villages in Chukun local government have been set ablaze. Women have been raped and violated, and they have been thrown out. Whenever they go to the court to make complaints, they are often turned down. Other cases of specific targeting of Christians abound around Plateau, which is a middle belt region in Nigeria, in southern Kaduna, and of course here in Borno, in Maiduguri, and in Adamawa State, where Christians are slowly and gradually being killed and decimated. In fact, Christians are evicted from their farms. The Fulani people, when they come to farms that belong to Christians, because the Fulanis are pastoralists, while the majority of Christians are farmers, they cultivate the land. The Fulanis come, especially between this November and December, and release thousands of cattle into their farmland, and they destroy their farmland, thus impoverishing them, denying them food, and there has been a tussle over ownership of land. The government has said nothing about that. So on daily basis, Christians are being killed. Just recently, to put the picture even clearly, recently on the road leading between Maiduguri and Damaturu, Christians have been targeted, removed from vehicles, and killed, while other people, other Muslims, have been allowed to move on. This is happening in broad daylight, and Christians are constantly suffering. We live here in Maiduguri, and we are constantly taking care of these people who live in internally displaced camps, providing them food, a little of shelter, accompanying them and counseling them. Thanks to the church in need, thanks to the Hungarian government that provided support for the construction of this center. And we go out to try to accompany these people who have received various forms of violations and violence. Some of them have been raped. Some of them have witnessed the violent murder of their parents before them. And we are left with little children who live in these camps, some of them orphans, some of them you have child-headed household, and these people cannot provide for themselves. But thanks to those generous donors out there, sometimes we're able to provide them with food, we're able to provide them with little clothing, and little medical health care. Of course, certain NGOs, non-governmental organizations, are providing help on that. There has been a famous story of the abduction of 276 Chibok girls that shook the world. Part of them have been returned. Over 106 are still at loss. Where they are, no one can explain. Probably some of them have been married off as sex slaves. Some of them have been sold off for prostitution, and many probably must have been used as live suicide bombers. We have the case of Leah Sharibu, the only single Christian girl who simply for refusing to convert and refusing to stand down has been held back by a terrorist group. To the shame of the country, nothing so much has been done despite every promise to restore her, to rescue her from her abductors. But these are not the only people who have been abducted and forcefully converted. Currently, I have over 6 cases of people who have come to me. The last one was just last week, that his daughter, a 14-year-old girl, has been forcefully taken over, converted into Islam, and given out in marriage to a young person. And to worsen the situation, he has been charged, he has been given a court summons to appear in Sharia court and forcefully to give consent for the marriage of his daughter, who is simply a 14-year-old girl in secondary school. The law system is failing. A Christian sent to a Sharia court and to forcefully give a consent to the marriage of his 14-year-old girl in the 21st century. Why is it that these things are not making headlines? Well, I'm glad that there are efforts out there. People are giving us such platforms where we can speak about the plight of Christians. Many girls have been abducted, and more abductions are still going on. We make efforts to restore some of these girls. Last month, I was able to get one of the girls that was forcibly abducted. After making a lot of efforts, frantic efforts, we were able to reunite her back to her family. And these girls who are sometimes living in these camps are being even targeted. So there is even another softer form of persecution. While the big persecution is going on, where Christians are being evicted from their homes and their houses are being burned, their places of worship destroyed, we are denied land, we are denied job opportunities, and denied even economic opportunities. In these camps, they are constantly being targeted, abducted, raped, and given out to other people. Some of them are orphans. Some of them have no parents. And we have this large number of people who are constantly suffering a lot of dehumanization. Displacement has taken over a large part of the Northeast in Nigeria. My diocese here in Maiduguri is a very big, huge camp for internally displaced persons. We are constantly, daily, living with these persons. We move into the field to accompany them, to encourage them. Just this afternoon, a young widow who has lost her husband to the crisis came to me crying because they are making efforts to take over 10 of her children who are in her custody and trying to force her to convert. And she came to me crying just this afternoon, simply because she's a Christian. So we are displaced, we are dehumanized, and our people are living in constant fear. What are the impacts of this? Christians living in their land are meant to live in fear, are meant to live in poverty. We have lost so many lives. We have lost property and places of worship. And yet, the government is very slow to come to our aid. But at the same time, it is not just all sad story. I am so glad to say that today there are many Christians who are very bold, who are witnessing to their faith. In the midst of constant bombings and gunshots, people still want to come to the church. People want to profess their faith. People want to live in peace. And we as pastors are here trying to help them. So we are threatened. We are at risk of being exterminated. There's a slow process of genocide going on Christians in Nigeria. Our people are afraid, but paradoxically, they are courageous and bold, witnessing to their faith. And we as pastors, we are here accompanying our own flock. We love them, and we want to live among them and witness to them, and witness to our own faith and minister to their own needs. We accompany them in their spiritual worship. We accompany them through counseling. Thank God we have a little center coming up where we help those who have been violently traumatized, to accompany them to accept, reintegrate, and build their lives again, and build proper strategies for their lives. We are trying to bring healing to our people, even in the midst of all this ferocious persecution that is going on. From the help that we are able to receive from so many donors, the Hungarian government was good enough to help my diocese. We have received some grant from them, and we have been able to do a lot of projects thanks to the efforts of those people. Thanks to the Church in Need International that has provided us with a grant that we are building the center for this trauma healing. Thanks to Caritas International. Thanks to many other little donors who constantly support us that we may offer help to our people who are living in camps as internally displaced persons. The Christians in northern Nigeria are living as minorities, constantly threatened and targeted. We are living in a situation where our efforts sometimes are undermined. But at the same time, our courage comes from God. We want to live in peace. We want to live in harmony. We wish no one harm. We want to live in peace even with our Muslim brothers. And we want to live as much as possible in harmony and in tranquility. Yet we are constantly persecuted, and we as pastors we as individuals want to stand by our people to encourage them. So we are grateful to many of you out there who are donors, who are supporting us. We are grateful for this raising of awareness that you are doing, raising the awareness that many people, minorities, are targeted and persecuted for their faith. Thank you for the work you are doing. I think you can do so much more. You stand with us, you are supporting us. I believe many are praying for us and many are encouraging us. Many will want to donate to the cause of charity out there. Many speakers have spoken before me. But I want to stand today and say thank you to those donors out there. And we still look up to you through these various agents, like Aid to the Church in Need, Caritas, and many other groups, to continue to support us so that we can keep the faith alive here in Nigeria, especially in northern Nigeria. Yes, we risk extermination. We are risking a slow genocide, but we are courageous, and we want to stand for our people. Our hardship could be strong. We could be challenged. The COVID-19 has worsened the situation. The food security problem has risen. A lot of our people are in need of food now because they couldn't go to their farms and farm and cultivate the land. A lot of them are being targeted by Boko Haram. Just 3 kilometers away from Maiduguri here, you are under attack. And I live here in Maiduguri. Just 3 kilometers, you are within the range where Boko Haram is. Our lives are threatened here. But we believe that we'll continue to live in peace. And we pray for peace. So thank you very much. Continue to support us through your advocacy work, through diplomatic engagements, through dialogue, but also through the generous donations and support that you continue to do to people. Thank you and God bless you.
I cannot hear you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for signaling. Yeah. Just by looking at I was saying thank you very much, Father, and also that just by looking at the facial expressions of Falah and Akmal, I can see that they relate to what you are saying. Many of us have gone through very comparable ways of torture, ways of, as we heard in the previous panel from Rabbi Pavel, that dehumanizing of the victim is been going on in the case of Falah for thousands of years, and in Nigeria for a couple of, some decades already, and in Pakistan, well, it's just since Pakistan was created a few years later, then immediately they forgot about the plurality of the religions, and this dehumanization has been progressing to the point that people, I mean, the others, they feel like some sort of permission to eliminate. It's a very dangerous situation that you are explaining to us. And we are very thankful really to the hosts of this event for giving us the opportunity to explain it to the Czech public. So now I would like to give the floor to back to our moderator, Daniel Raus, who will then organize the question and answers for you. Thank you.
Tak děkujeme velmi Marcele Szymanski.
Thank you very much, Marcela, and thank you to all the other speakers. It has been immensely interesting and very emotional. I think it was self-explanatory what you were sharing with us. I have a couple of questions for Falah Hassan. And one of them is, how many Yazidis have stayed in Iraq? And to what degree the Yazidis cooperate with other minorities, such as Christians and others? And this is linked to another question. What is the migration of Yazidis? We know that there were 100,000 Christians in Mosul. Now there are 5,000 after Islamic State or ISIS or Daesh, whatever you call it. What about the migration of Yazidis? How many of them have stayed, and how do they collaborate with the other minorities?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. The number of Yazidis in Iraq is about 300,000 in Sinjar and about 100 in Nineveh plain, about 400,000 Yazidis now in Iraq. Yes, the migration of the Yazidis, many Yazidis migrated, and they use it dangerous ways, actually, like agency between Turkey and Greece, and many died on the way. They prefer to die in the seas instead of staying in Iraq because they feel in danger. And my family, part of my family, went through agencies. So more than 1,000 people, but some governments helped the Yazidis. I have to mention them actually and thank the German government about accepting about more than 1,000 of the victims of the Yazidis. I also want to thank the French government and the President Macron about accepting more than 100 families of the victims, and also Canada and Australia also they accepted many families of the victims. So we have to thank them as Yazidis. So more than 100, so between 100,000 to 200,000 of Yazidis migrated Iraq after the genocide of 2014, because we lost the trust with the local governments, and there's this, like I was a witness on their withdrawal, and we feel that there was a plan between them and the government and ISIS. And in the other hand, the situation now, and from 2003 till now, between the governments, how the Yazidis and the minorities areas, like Christian areas also, they are conflict areas, and the political parties try to control on elections in Iraq, and they don't let the clear voice of the Yazidi to reach to the world, or to reach to the place of the decisions, the decision. Recently, the Kurdish parties interfered with the appointment of the Prince of the Yazidis, although 99 of Yazidis refused that prince to be Prince of the Yazidis. Unfortunately, the Kurdish parties interfered with that, and lastly, with the appointment of Baba Sheikh, even the religious matter. This is related to the Yazidis specifically, but unfortunately, they interfered with it, like if some political party interfere with the appointment of Papa Vatican in Vatican. So this is very dangerous, actually, on Yazidi identity and Yazidi religion in Iraq. That's why the people, if now there was way to go outside of Iraq, I'm sure more than 80% of the Yazidis will leave Iraq. About our participation with other, our relation with other minorities, actually, all the time the Christians and other minorities are in sympathy with each other. The Yazidis, the Christians, and the others are in sympathy with each other. They support each other, but unfortunately the political parties are stronger than us. They have militia, and they treat the people to speak, even the victims, when they try to speak. For example, if there is a conference in Baghdad or outside of Iraq, if they invited a victim to go to speak, the Kurdish forces, or they reach to that victim and they tell them to say what they want. If not, when they come back to Iraq, they will be questioned and threatened. That's why we don't feel free in Iraq. We don't have a decision in Iraq. Actually, they control on the decision of the Yazidis and the minorities in Iraq.
Ještě dodatečná otázka na
One more question for Falah Hassan. Yazidis are predominantly ethnic Kurds. If there was independent Kurdistan, would it be good news for them?
We are Yazidis, and this is just a political naming. They say you are Kurds. They are stealing our rights in Iraq from 2003 till now. The budget of Nineveh is about 600 billion Iraqi dinars, and 1/3 of the population of Nineveh are Yazidis. From 2003 till now, for 17 years, this budget is divided by Sunni, Shia, and Kurds, and Yazidis are nothing. They have no rights. This budget is not used to construct the Yazidis area, the Yazidi places. Instead, are used for other purposes. They call us Kurd, but actually the Yazidis are Yazidis. For me, I don't consider myself a Kurdish. I'm a Yazidi, and this is the decision of and the opinion of all Yazidis, but they threaten inside of Iraq. For example, when I say I'm Yazidi, I'm not Kurdish. When I go to a governmental office, for example, to do some papers of me, I will not be able to continue my papers. They will not tell me directly the reason, but the reason is clear. So I don't consider myself as Kurd. The Yazidi don't consider themselves as Kurd.
Tak to je další velmi zajímavé.
All right, that is another very interesting issue from the political point of view, i.e. the need to distinguish and recognize Yazidis as an ethnic group. We have another question for Mr. Bhatti. Are we connected? Akmal Bhatti. Oh, sorry, no, my mistake. Oh yes, still, Akmal Bhatti, please. Are you with us? Oh, thank you, excellent. This is a question about the blasphemy laws, because this is something that is being discussed even here in the Czech Republic. It's discussed in the news, so people are sort of aware of the issue. But there is one thing that we fail to understand from the European perspective, which is the following. Are there any Muslim who oppose the Pakistani blasphemy laws? Because these laws must be very disadvantageous even for the Muslims themselves. So are there any among the Muslims opposing this law?
Yes, there are few peoples that are outspoken. They rely on saying that the misuse of blasphemy law should be stopped, but they are not agree to abolish or repeal these sensitive religious laws. They just want that there should be some law or some kind of legislation to stop the misuse of law, because they argue that blasphemy laws are for the protection of the minorities. If someone do that, there is a law to punish, and there is a penal laws, and they can penalize, and they can be persecuted in the courts. So I think there are few organizations like Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, some these kind of organization that emphasis and that raise their voice to stop misuse of blasphemy law. They don't speak for the abolishment or repealment.
And there is one additional question for Akmal Bhatti. Can we say that with the current Pakistani government, Pakistan is actually being radicalized? Because about 15 years ago, Pakistan was generally perceived as a, let's say, volatile democracy, but still Benazir Bhutto was a candidate for the office of Prime Minister, and she had her ideals similar to those that were actually the founding principles. So can we actually say that during the past decade, Pakistan has been radicalizing?
Yes, during these government, the extremist and religious parties are encouraged to active their to play their roles, and they are just doing pressurizing the other communities. Even as I spoke in my speech, that even Prime Minister, he has a strict beliefs, and he expressed vocally. He expressed that he want a Pakistan religious state on the type of the Khilafat, Usmania Khilafat, and there are in these days they have many ministers that have very radical thoughts. They spoke in the assembly forum against the Christians, and a number of times on electronic media they spoke against the Christians, they spoke against the Hindu, and even when there was a issue of caricatures and even Sweden. In these times, they expressed their views against, especially against the Christian, that we are involved. I think they relate Pakistani Christian with the Western countries. It's not exactly the truth. The truth is that we are the son of soil. I think Benazir Bhutto was a great leader, and he was outspoken, and she want to make Pakistan the moderate and liberal and secular Pakistan, but this government is not doing that. They want this country to be a religious and extremist country.
Just one additional question. Shahbaz Bhatti, your uncle, was a government minister. And as far as I know, he was the only Christian minister in the history of Pakistan. So, do you think that today a representative of one of the religious minorities could be represented in the government?
No, we have a Minority Alliance Pakistan. We have raised voice that there should be a minister of the Shahbaz Bhatti. After his assassination, People's Party government created a Ministry of National Harmony, and there was his brother Dr. Paul Bhatti was appointed as an advisor in the National Ministry. But after that, in federal level, there is no any representation of the minorities, and this is the need of the time, because we have difficulty, and we have very sensitive issue to raise on the national forum, to raise on the to discuss on the cabinet forum, but there is no representation. As there was two bill was represented. One was represented for the minority protection bill, but that was also rejected, and one other that was for the educational quota for the minorities, and that was also not accepted on the platform of federal cabinet. And I think there should be, we demand, and we raise voice that there should be a federal ministry for the minorities peoples, that we can easily approach to our minister, and we can discuss, and we can plan, and we can forward for the protection of minorities, and we can draft some bill. But there is a lacking that. And I think this government is not interested to resolve these issues. Even the Supreme Court of Pakistan decided that there should be a minority commission for the, and this government formed this commission, but they all, but their representative was not neutral and partial. They just their party members, they give representation to their party workers, and they are not doing anything for the minorities. So I think, and I ask all of you and those at any form, if you can raise voice, and if you can correspondence to the Pakistani government, that there should be a federal ministry that have been in the past, and that was created to resolve the issue of the religious minorities, and now this is need of the time.
Tak, děkujeme.
Thank you very much. Now we have a question to Joseph Fidelis. Can you hear us? Yes. Okay. We have one question which I cannot ignore. And it is a question to Father Fidelis. The question is very simple. Where do you gather your strength from?
Where do we gather our support from?
Ne.
Not really. I mean, what is the source of the energy, of your strength to actually live in that kind of conditions?
Je to duchovní.
So it's more of a spiritual question.
Yes. Ever since this crisis has been raging on as a diocese, for us here as Catholics, we have dedicated and consecrated our diocese to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and our bishop has been at the forefront of this. We have today a pilgrim center where we even encourage people to go and pray. And we constantly accompany our people through their spiritual need, especially the celebration of the Eucharist and devotion to Our Lady and the Blessed Sacrament. For me as an individual, ever since this crisis started, I have made it a point of duty to constantly, with or without people, celebrate the Mass. But thank God, people still come for the celebration of the Mass. So yes, my courage comes directly from God. And like I said sometime, we in Maiduguri, in this town especially, have no other reason to explain for our survival apart from God. Because we, at many times, have escaped death. I, here in Maiduguri, escaped bullet shot when I was trying to save some of my children in 2014 when Boko Haram came to release their men from the barrack. I escaped bomb blasts. Some priests too have escaped bomb blasts and gunshots. People, we have run with them. There was a time we were displaced, part of our descent, and our people moved through Cameroon back into Nigeria. But the source of our strength has been God, who has been directing us, has been shielding us, and sustaining us. Another source of inspiration is the faith of the people, that our people do not want to give up. They want to come to the church. They want to have their masses. They want to have their spiritual activities. So as a priest, I also drive courage when I daily see my people who come and say, Father, we need mercies. And thirdly, our source of strength, they are these people, you who are out there. You who are the supporters of the persecution. We know your situation, we know your suffering, and we are supporting you. So that is our third source of strength. And the sustenance and the Blessed Virgin Mary and the celebration of the Mass, the faith of the people who are also courageous despite the persecution, and of course, so many generous men and women who are praying for us and sustaining us in what we do.
Tak tohle je, myslím, právě ten moment, kdy je třeba...
I think this is the moment to close the third session, and with it, our conference on religious persecution in the Third World. Before we do that, I'll hand over to Pavel Svoboda, who inspired this event and who will summarize all the key takeaways. Ladies and gentlemen, when we listened to the afternoon sessions, I thought of a Czech proverb that says, if your belly is full, you do not believe those whose belly is empty. We live in a country with a relatively functioning democracy and religious freedom. So it is difficult for us to actually internalize what we have heard, to understand and accept that it's actually the reality of the 21st century. I personally have a problem accepting that it's not being discussed or not enough in Europe, although it's a tragedy of such scope. And I find it even more difficult to understand that the media that otherwise love violence, conflict, and tragedy completely ignore this tragedy and the largest genocide in the world. A second thing I thought of, I could not remember Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, who said that the death of an individual is a tragedy, the death of millions is statistics. And we should not succumb to that. We have heard brutal testimonies of tragedies, but we should never take it as a mere statistics. We must see it as hundreds of thousands of human stories, personal stories. Persecution for faith leads to these cases on a daily basis in a world that is more and more compact due to the telecommunication technologies and means of transport. This is the 4th year we hold this event. And for a 4th year, I'm waiting for better news, for someone saying it's improving in our place. So far, I'm waiting in vain, which is very sad indeed. Our conference is titled Facts and Testimonies, and I believe we have covered both these aspects. We have heard legal, philosophical, and human analysis. We also heard direct testimonies of people who are persecuted on religious grounds. I believe that there is a question hanging in the air. What can we do with it? Every single one of us. There have been a couple of answers suggested, but I feel that we will have to dedicate much more effort and attention to this. It's not sufficient to hold an event once a year to listen to the dreadful news, but to think of the possibilities each of us has. And based on these small contributions, I believe little pebblestones of solidarity, little drops, will join together to form a current that will reverse the trend that nowadays exists in the world, a trend for the worsening of a situation as regards religious freedom. If God allows, we will meet in a year's time to contemplate help to our brothers and sisters who are persecuted for their religion. I would like to finish by a round of thanks. I would like to thank our host, the rector of Charles University, Mr. Zimmer, for offering the premises of the university for this event. I would like to thank all the speakers, headed by Minister Tomáš Petříček. I would like to thank all the organizers, the Czech Bishops' Conference, the Ecumenical Council of Churches, the Federation of Jewish Communities in the Czech Republic, the Institute for Christian Democratic Policy. I would like to thank the moderator, Daniel Raus, for leading us through this event. I would like to thank TV Noi for our first year of collaboration in transmitting this event to viewers and listeners. I would like to thank the interpreters because their work has been made even more difficult because of the quality of our internet connection, which was not always completely sufficient. I would like, however, to also thank the inventors of the internet, because without that, we would never get this first-hand experience of the status quo of religious freedom throughout the world. We are people of hope, and we believe good will prevail in the end. And we believe that what we can take away from this event is not only tragic news, but also decidedness to also help to resolve the situation. The last thing is up to me. I would like to thank all the spectators who have been following us for their patience, if they have endured until this moment, because it must have been very difficult for them as well. All the sessions will be available on the internet, also separately. And the last news is that at 6 we will transmit the Jewish and Christian prayer from the Carolinum, the Great Hall, the Aula Magna, and you can view it on this channel where you are now. We believe that Red Wednesday will one day lose the reason of its existence. But while it still has reason for existence, we will keep holding it. Thank you, Pavel, Svoboda, for this initiative, and I wish all the best to everybody. Take care.